Welcome to Building Your World, the commercial real estate development and investment podcast. Here, you can find insightful discussions covering industry-related topics across all asset classes and markets.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Building Your World. I am Nicholas Long. I'm here with Will Ellis and McKay Brabham, and we're going to hopefully have a good conversation today talking about a few topics that we have arranged to discuss. But for starters, I wanted to hear about how Thanksgiving was. We weren't able to record over the last few weeks, so I hope that y'all had a good Thanksgiving. McKay, what did you do for Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving was good. My wife and I went back to Columbia and spent some time with my family. I got to see a bunch of friends and watch some football, make it to the Clemson-Carolina game, which was a good win, and then came back and hit the ground running again.
Sweet. And are y'all shaping up for Christmas around the Brabham household, or
we are?
What's going on?
We are. We just bought our Christmas tree the other night, and we've strung the lights and are hoping to start really decorating soon.
Yeah. You got anything out front? Any blow-ups? Man, the blow-ups are popular this year.
No blow-ups. We do have a big wreath that we've had out for probably over a month now.
Very traditional. I like it. What about you, Will? What'd y'all do for Thanksgiving?
We stayed out here, out west. Weren't able to travel back east to be with family. But Liz and I made enough food for about 12 people. So we had Thanksgiving for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for about five days. But it was great. Like McKay, watched a lot of football.
You did it right. And what about you? You guys have all the decor up?
Well, things are a little funky out here. So we showed up at the Christmas tree lot last Saturday. They're only open from 10 to 3 on a Saturday. And they were closed because we were getting snow and it was a powder day. So they left and hit the mountain.
I'm jealous.
Yeah, I am jealous too. Well, I think you'll be glad to hear, Will, I was in D.C. the weekend prior to Thanksgiving. I had a cousin get married, so spent time with some family. But I went with my girlfriend, to her family Thanksgiving, and it was great. Watched a lot of football too, ate good food. We were hanging out. And then her 8-month-old niece came into the scene and took out like 15 members of the family with a stomach bug. So I hadn't had a stomach bug in like 20 years, and it took me a few days after everyone else got it for me to get it.
That's brutal.
I was thinking that I had an indestructible immune system, but it caught up to me. But yeah, all's good. And I'm looking forward to Christmas as well. I was just working on light bulbs, before we jumped on the call. So I'm working on my exterior illumination game. So I'll keep y'all posted with the results.
Nico Griswold.
That's right.
Are we a colored light guy or are we a white light guy?
So white, you got to do the white accents, but I have a bush or two here and there that's green or red. So I think those are the 3 standard colors. Those are the best. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get into it. So what's going on at work? I was hoping to hear a little bit about what y'all have been working on either this week or the past few weeks. Anything you're excited about, or just anything cool to share. McKay, what are you working on right now?
Yeah, we've been busy over the past week or so. At one of our office properties in Columbia, we signed a lease to a dental group for a few thousand feet, which is exciting. That was a good lease. And then kind of interesting news, especially given some of our prior conversations on the pod, we just closed on a rather large office building in Columbia, 115,000 square foot building, and 100,000 square feet of it is vacant. So this is very opportunistic. It is definitely a basis play, and then try and do some things that the prior landlord didn't do, and see if we can drive some business.
Didn't do, like lease it?
Like lease it, like make some HVAC improvements, like it needed some serious updating throughout. So I was in Columbia today with our team walking around and starting to think about what kind of improvements we should start doing for some spec suites.
Okay, great. Wow, that's really cool. So is it going to be office? Are y'all
Yeah.
stick with the asset class? Okay, very interesting. Are y'all bullish on office in southeastern markets, or?
Yeah, at least in Colombia, I mean, I feel like everything in Colombia is a little bit underserved. It's just never been like the spot to be, but it's always been pretty steady with not too much vacancy. I mean, our other office project in Colombia, it's a 3 building portfolio we've got, and it's around 200,000 square feet total between the 3 buildings, and we're always hovering around 90% occupancy, and it'd probably be higher. There's a few suites that would need some kind of extreme TI to get where they need to be. So we've always been relatively pleased with that, and we feel good about what's to come.
Wow, yeah. I mean, that's really cool. Well, you heard it here first, folks. The office is back.
That's right.
That's great. What about you, Will? What you got going on?
We're working on an RFQ that's due in a couple weeks, and we're mulling over an RFP that was released in the last couple weeks, whether we're going to take a run at it, whether it's a good use of our resources. And then from the jobs we got going on currently, we're working on a phased completion plan so we can move tenants in to one of the buildings while we're still wrapping up the next one. So a lot of work
Cool.
with the fire marshal and the building department. So
Yeah.
it's been
Now,
good.
that's for another multifamily complex, right? Workforce housing.
It is.
Okay. Nice. Nice. Well, cool. Yeah, I thought. Go ahead, McKay.
I've
You
I've
got.
got one more thing to add to my section about a deal that we just did that I think you'll think is cool. Another deal that we just did is up in Liberty, North Carolina. We have an office in the Greensboro market, so we cover kind of that area. We've done 3 opportunity zone industrial projects, and this is one that we're wrapping up right now. We I guess it's been probably a year or so since we bought a shell industrial building. There's no floor poured yet. It's 85,000 square feet, and we've been making some improvements and finishing out the construction over the past few months. And last week we signed a lease with a subsidiary of Toyota. It's 9 miles from their mega site in Randolph County, and so we've just leased the full building to them, and it'll be used for battery storage. So that's super exciting for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. Man, what a purchase. Sorry. So sorry. Did you say that was ground up development, or was that an existing acquisition?
It was existing. We bought it as a shell, but there was so much that hadn't been finished out yet.
Yeah. Yeah. What happened there? Prior developer got underwater. Do you have any idea?
You can cut this because I don't remember.
We'll jump on. Well, I thought I'd share a little bit of this. I've got an interesting night ahead of me, but I think that we'll get into that later. But either way, the office is high energy, high focus right now. We're near the end of our due diligence phase on a site for a potential 8 building industrial park. We're being thrown a bit of a sewer curveball right now, trying to figure out access and stuff like that. We stumbled upon some information that wasn't apparent to us from the start. But so we're working through some site redesigns, and hopefully we won't have to lose any buildings, and that we can, produce a functional and efficient park. On the other end of it, and something I'm working through, on a daily basis as well, is our financial model is currently kind of towing the line of what we might deem to be an acceptable return. So yeah, we're sort of finding ways to sharpen our pencils a little bit on the construction numbers. We're going into this hoping to be kind of a low cost provider for the area, and yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But it looks like we're going to be able to push forward and pull something cool off. So we're really excited about that. And yeah, it's always fun to work, with the team, especially under a little bit of pressure like that, because we're all rowing in the same direction and solving problems on the fly. So it's been a ton of fun. But as far as tonight, I'm either going to have a late night or an early morning, depending on how I dice it up. But we are going to start pouring the slab on another project we're working on, a spec industrial building along the interstate, and that will start around 2 a.m. So I'm going to plan on going out there and observe and see if there's any way I can lend a hand. But we're also excited about that. And, our team likes to be out in the field whenever we start working on something like that. So it should be fun. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I'll be able to lend a hand. I might just be standing around observing and or just being the cheerleader. So I'm gonna cheer that concrete comes on flat, and then the anchor bolts are lined up. It's a pre-engineered building, so that's what we got going
That's
on.
exciting.
So let's jump into our topics. Will, you got anything interesting?
Yeah, I'm going to go with artificial intelligence.
Let's do it. All right, Will, you want to go first?
Sure.
All right.
Artificial
Let's hear it,
intelligence
Will.
for 500.
I've been watching a lot of Jeopardy recently.
Let's hear it. What is most interesting you right now about AI and how it plays into real estate?
So probably about a year ago, everybody was enamored with Chat GPT. And Nick, before we hopped on, you mentioned that you were having Chat GPT do something for you. People are aware of what AI can do for them. I think the only people that have really taken advantage of it are high school students trying to write papers that they forgot about. But the construction industry is the least affected by technological advancements.
Sure.
It's taken the industry forever to adopt any sort of technology, but now they've really adopted Procore and other project management softwares to help streamline the process as much as it can be streamlined. And I think artificial intelligence is going to have a massive impact on the way real estate professionals go about their business, whether it's from contract write ups, drafting an LOI, or possibly looking up or referencing code while you're going through construction. On the construction side, I don't think we're too far off from one of these technology entities such as Procore from embedding an AI widget into their software, whether it's answering basic construction questions for them, answering questions about the specific project. I don't know how it's all going to play out, but I think it'll have a drastic impact on how quickly people are able to analyze deals or have their complex questions answered quickly without having to pay a design professional for their thoughts and opinions.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you implementing any AI currently in your business processes, or not yet? Are you looking forward to something coming out that you can take advantage of?
We currently don't use any AI integration. We've talked about joking around about having ChatGPT write us an LOI, but that's as far as we've gotten.
Okay.
I think one of these startups will be able to produce something that will be useful, whether it's on the construction side of things, on the real estate side of things, on the finance side of things.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So I'm
Excited to
sure.
see
Yeah.
what happens over the next couple of years.
Right. I'm sure you've got your eyes peeled for something that'll make your life a little easier.
I do a Google search every so often.
You should do a Bard search. You got to get on AI, man.
You're telling me.
All right. Well, I'll go ahead and share something that I think is interesting. Now, I'm going to try not to spend too much time on it because it's a bit financial. I don't want to bore the crowd here, but it's Basel III Endgame. For those of you who don't know, the Federal Reserve, the FDIC, and the OCC are proposing increased bank capital requirements through the Basel III Endgame proposal. If you don't know what Basel III is, essentially it aims to ensure that regulators apply similar minimum capital requirements standards to banks on a global basis. So it was developed after the financial crisis, and it's been adopted, or at least partially adopted, by many countries, and the US has partially adopted it, but now our bank regulators are stepping forward to make some changes. The new proposal is meant to refine current regulations to increase the minimum capital requirements held by large banks. So, to put it simply, this would increase the amount of money that these large banks with assets over $100 billion, it would increase the amount that they were required to hold. So, obviously, it reduces the amount that they have to lend. Now, they're claiming that this wouldn't affect community banks or smaller regional banks, but I think it's obvious that as competitors, they'll as the larger banks get more competitive when trying to deal with these new capital requirements, it's likely to maybe outcompete some of the smaller banks. But either way, it's going to also reduce the ability of banks to use their own models in assessing risk, and it'll make a few other changes. So yeah, obviously with anything like this, there are arguments for and against this proposal. I'm not certain what the right stance is yet, but I did kind of think about and come up with a few ways that it might impact commercial real estate. So I know that in our current lending environment, there are three challenges related to banking that are evident to me. Firstly, a lot of banks are facing liquidity challenges. A lot are asking for more deposits from borrowers. I see this both in just conversations with our lenders and even in verbiage on actual term sheets. So that's been pretty interesting. Challenge number two, many have been forced either internally or by investor pressure to step up their lending requirements as to become more reserved in who they're lending to or selective in who they lend to or the assets or projects that they're lending on. We've seen a bit of that. And then lastly, due to the high cost of borrowing, there are effectively fewer projects penciling on the side of the developer and the investor. So I think that soon that should start affecting banks as they start to become maybe more challenged in finding developers or purchasers to lend to. So we'll see how that goes. Right now, banks seem to be de-risking or facing challenges that ultimately affect profitability, but maybe not solvency. But to me, the Basel III Endgame proposal would have some pretty significant economic impacts in what is currently just a tough economic environment. From a commercial real estate perspective, as less stuff gets off the ground, we may see, further inflation of rental rates. This might cause reduced lending due to increased capital reserve requirements, in limited financing for CRE projects, higher loan costs just as a result of the higher capital requirements, as well as banks having to assign entire teams to deal with the administrative side of these regulations. This may shift focus away from riskier assets. So it's possible that we see less, say, hospitality or office be financed in in a time where there could be plenty of good deals to snatch up that may have trouble getting financing for. So another thing is screw the newbies. As banks choose to become more selective with lending partnerships, they will focus on borrowers with a strong track record and financial stability. This would make it much harder for real estate entrepreneurs to source capital for development deals. The way I see it is we're in a tough lending environment, and there very well could be, again, another challenge added here. And we'll see how that affects people down the line. So that's what I got. What's going on with you, McKay? What do you think is interesting right now?
I think with increased lending standards, if the amount of money being lent out is constricted even more than it has been, we would ideally see demand really catch back up with supply. And there's so much vacancy right now that I know that that's specific to certain markets and certain asset types, but that would probably allow some opportunity for developers to get leased the product they've got outstanding.
Yeah.
Another like thought that I had was when you brought up banks not being able to use their own risk assessment models. I'm curious what that actually looks like. I mean, if everybody's using the same model to underwrite risk, I feel like that takes away competition a little bit between banks.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, again, this is just my perspective coming from, working mostly in light industrial and retail and in a high growth market where we have pretty low vacancy. But I can understand from an office perspective, hey, there could be plenty of time, or this could create a period where demand does catch back up with supply for something like office. So we'll see, but this is definitely something that we'll want to have our eye on as it moves forward and as we get down the road. But yeah, you got something for us?
Yeah, I do. I wanted to bring up. I read this article that it was about the CEO of Walmart talking about how he's seen throughout this year that the consumer has proved to be probably more resilient than many people would have thought they would be, and Walmart has kind of increased their outlook for this year and the near term. They felt better about consumer spending than people probably would have thought, which has been kind of interesting. What's interesting to me is that consumer credit card balances, consumer debt has been on the rise, and I don't have metrics in front of me right now, but people's COVID savings and everything that's getting spent. They're racking up personal debt, but spending has kept up. At what point does this stop? You would have thought that that probably would have happened some this year with interest rates flying up, but part of what Walmart said was that they've seen some deflation in, I guess, their supply chain to where they've been able to let their prices come down a little bit, and the consumer has reacted really positively to that. They've seen that prices are down 5%. Well, I might as well keep buying it or buy more of it. And it's interesting to think, like, at what point does this stop? I know right here in the upstate of South Carolina, we've got, I think it's 5 or 6 million square footers all available right now. And these developers, they're not going to get tenants until we have a little more clear guidance on what the next year or 2 years looks like. I mean, we've got guys like Walmart or Amazon or Target who 2 years ago were leasing these behemoths, and now they're lurking in the shadows, and they might be kind of in the market, but they're kind of not in the market. And when will they do a deal? We don't know. So it's just interesting to see this positive outlook, but
Yeah, for sure.
who knows what the next year holds? And would love to see if things do prove further resilient and we get some of this product leased. At the same time, people need to make good decisions and pay down these debts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Easier said than done.
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah,
there's a lot of people driving really nice cars around right now.
yeah. No, I mean it's interesting how, I mean, especially like you get a stimulus check over COVID, or money was cheap and you're able to kind of elevate your lifestyle more than you should have. I mean, it was inorganic growth, and people like to keep that up.
Yeah,
I mean, I definitely have probably I try to cut back. I don't ever try to let my spending increase, and it's interesting that a lot of people just want to
keep
get
going.
flashier and keep going and keep it up.
Right.
When does that break? I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah. So, I mean, let's this question kind of popped in my mind. What is the first asset class impacted by a drop in discretionary spending? Is it obvious? Is it retail, or are there light industrial product that go out of business because they're based around a company where consumers aren't spending anymore and there's some type of service provider? It'd be interesting to kind of see how that happens. Or is it just a wave where it takes everything out at once? Maybe not take everything out, but where it kind of impacts the entire commercial real estate market.
I would think retail first. I think that stores would be, and given all of these businesses are in leases, they're contractually obligated to pay for X amount of time. But I think you're going to see store closings happen first at retail locations, and whether they're able to get out of their lease or not, that's between them and the landlord. But if business totally slows, you're not selling, I would think you shut the store, and then at some point that justifies maybe releasing some of your office staff,
Sure.
and then shrinking the office footprint.
Sure. Yeah, it makes sense to me.
So, do you think the recession's coming next year that everyone's been talking about for the last 3?
I think so. I'm a little bit of a, I don't know. I'm an optimist with a little bit of pessimism in there.
Doesn't sound like an optimist to me.
Fair enough. I just think that there's going to be some type of lull in discretionary spending. As McKay said, I don't know where the break is as consumers continue to rack up debt. And a lot of people are sitting on adjustable rate loans of certain kinds that are going bonkers right now. So they're praying for a rate decrease, but I'm not sure. It seems like everyone's playing a guessing game. I've read articles that said the Fed's going to cut rates. I've read articles that say they're going to raise again. I've read articles that say they're going to keep it stable. The thing that I think is what the Fed's been saying from the beginning, and it's just rates are going to be higher for longer, higher than people want for longer than they want. So, I think that we're going to be locked into kind of a tough cost of capital environment for the next year at least. hopefully starts letting off at the end of next year. But I also think that maybe things will start to be reflected more, or maybe things will normalize as far as pricing goes. I think that, as sellers come up and sellers need or want to get rid of assets, I think that they're going to have to get more realistic, and understand that, hey, things aren't trading at sub 5 cap rates for industrial product anymore. It just doesn't make sense. So hopefully, we'll have some more realistic pricing, and we'll find some fair deals. That's what I'm looking for right now. But we're finding some diamonds in the rough still. So hopefully we stumble across just a chest of diamonds at some point. The last thing that I wanted to note is I read an article from Fortune, and it's why residential conversions can't save commercial real estate. I remember as office vacancies were rising, people were kind of brainstorming ideas for how we might repurpose these buildings. I'm not so sure that I would go and completely repurpose high-rise office buildings, but either way, he mentioned some of the challenges and impracticalities of converting office spaces into residential units. So obviously, there's just from a code perspective, you would have to. I mean, you might be better off just stripping these buildings down completely if you're going to repurpose them, because you are going to face major obstacles with plumbing, HVAC systems. I mean, think about that. Imagine taking a floor of the office where there's maybe two bathrooms, women and a men's bathroom, mid floor. I mean, think about rerunning the plumbing to have, I don't know, let's just say 2-bedroom units, let's say 52 bedroom units across a floor. That's insane. So I just think that a lot of people who are talking about that's just kind of wishful thinking. These conversions would be much too expensive, and they'd have to, implement them at scale. And I still don't think that the numbers would ultimately pan out. Even though, I mean, I've heard in many cases, a lot of people are buying high-rise office buildings for like the price of the land. Pretty crazy, just because, if something's sitting vacant. So either way, but the article also touched on just the evolving landscape of remote work. This is sort of counter to something I've heard. I actually really don't have a good beat on whether or not employees are returning to the office, but this makes a claim that a significant number of employees actually are returning to office. I know that many companies are planning to implement return to the office policies and hybrid work schedules. That's still something that's not pumping up the numbers of office space that companies need to take up. But who knows? Going back to what you were saying, Will, will this AI revolution generate, that many more new startups and new companies that become successful and ultimately need space? Or, are we going to see a total shift in the office, as AI starts to kind of take over the world? Does it make more sense that a bunch of smaller competing groups open up and they leverage AI into their business operations, and maybe people need less team members but still have office space? So is this the time for the rise in work share? I don't know. But yeah, we'll see. Either way, I don't know. I don't know what the savior for the office is, but it's not that. So we'll see how things pan out.
Going back to the constructability of the conversion, the column spacing in offices doesn't align with residential or hospitality.
Interesting.
So the unit layouts would be very funky in most office buildings.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I don't know if it's possible to re-engineer an existing building in relation to the columns.
Right.
I think if you're going to do that, you might as well just tear it down.
Tear it down, build again. Yeah.
And if you bought it for the price of the land, who cares? Scrap it.
Yeah. Agreed. Cool. Well, y'all have anything else interesting you want to hit on? Or
what kind of pies did you guys make for Thanksgiving?
Oh, what kind of pies? I had a good apple pie. I'm not a big pie guy.
I had like a derby pie, a good pie for a sweet tooth like mine.
Nice.
In Columbia, that was good. We had an office Thanksgiving with probably like 60 something people, and it was the biggest, most full plate I've ever had. And I left just in pain going to play golf after that. I mean, even the dessert table had like 20 options. It was so great, but there were lots of pies there.
Is a derby pie like a chocolate chess pie?
Yeah, I think so. It's something like that. There's chocolate and I think some nuts and more chocolate. What did you eat?
Well, it's an Ellis tradition that we have key lime pie
Hmm.
Nice.
on Thanksgiving. So my mother sent me a key lime pie, and Liz made chocolate chess pie.
Sweet.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Cool. I guess that's a wrap for today. All right, and that's all we have for today, folks. Thanks for tuning in to Building Your World, the commercial real estate development and investment podcast. We hope to see you next time.